jump in. I know these classes go by real fast. We've got, I think, what, 4 performers? And only about an hour to get through everybody. So in an effort to get as much time for each performer as possible, we're going to jump right in. In between performers, I'll probably have time to take 1 or 2 questions. So if you've got them, don't hesitate. Don't be shy to raise your hand. Also, if there's anything we talk about in the class, he's got to mic me up. Is there anything we talk about in the class that I'm not able to answer? Grab me in the hallway.
You just stick this on you in your pocket or somewhere, anywhere.
Yeah.
And then put that towards your phone.
On my wallet. Is this on?
It's
a little tiny mic.
Oh. Oh, that's it.
Is that gonna work? All right. Can y'all hear me out there? That is working. All right. Please round of applause for the first performer. So can you tell us your name and what you've got for us today?
Yep, my name is Trip. I'm going to play the number 14 Blazovic.
Number 14, Blazovic. Fantastic. All right, do you mind if I stand here and kind of follow along with you?
Go.
All right. Bravo. Bravo. Nicely done. Yeah. All right. First thing I noticed was just an absolutely beautiful tone. Bravo. Congratulations. It's just fantastic. So really great building blocks, great fundamentals, really nice presentation. I love the phrasing you chose. It's one of the things I'd like to help with. And so I'm going to kind of list about 2 or 3 things that I think we have time for. One is that I think you have a great idea of the phrasing, but I'd like to help you be a little bit more detailed about it so that your execution can be more consistent and more planned, right? Two, I want to talk a little bit about the legato that you're using, matching between cross partial legato and in the partial legato, right? Getting a little bit more of a homogeneous idea there for our legato, so it all sounds the same regardless of whether we're crossing or staying inside of a partial. And then three, the types of breathing that you're doing to help connect the phrases into sentences, into paragraphs, zooming out into a storyline. Okay, so help me remember those three, because I usually get a little ADD and I go on tangents. The first one I said was about phrasing, right? So while we don't want our music to feel calculated, I think that we do need to have a bit of an organized approach to help bring our musical ideas into a performance situation, right? And that, I think, it's more than just like, I'm just gonna feel it, right? It's much more than that. I think that that's where our musicianship starts. Like when we're in the practice room, we're flicking back and forth between practice mode and performance mode. You know, when we're in that performance mode, we're discovering those ideas of how we want the music to go. And like I said, I really love the ideas that you've got. What I didn't get was a clear image of exactly where is the peak of the phrase, exactly which note is the most important one to you, right? There'd be times where it's like, it felt like you were going towards the top note in a phrase, but then the last minute you kind of shied away, but then you'd crescendo after it. It's like, I don't think he meant to do that. And so let's start with the top of the piece, right? And what I like to do, once I kind of discover how I want the music to go in a piece, I start asking questions, right? And I kind of have a conversation with my sort of inner musician. And it's like, all right, I want it to sound like this, but where it dynamically is the peak of the phrase? Can I put it either at the front of a note? Can I first determine which note it's on? Is it at the front, middle, or end of that note? And get really specific. So I do a lot of singing in my practice, a lot of singing in my mind, and just observing. It's like, it feels really good when it sounds like this, but where am I actually going to? So that I can start building a plan and consistency into the execution of that music, right? So let's start at the top. I want you to go ahead and just sing it in your mind and tell me in that first measure and a half, what's the most important note dynamically?
I think it's this one.
The A?
Yeah, either that or that.
Great, show us. Very nice, very nice. Now, I have a notation for this, so that because if you're doing this phrase by phrase and you're, starting to say this note, this note, this note, well, we're adding information to our approach of a piece. And this can start to really muddy the waters. I find that it helps me keep this information organized on the page if I have a notation for my musical ideas. And so I use like a little asterisk for the peaks of my phrases. Visually, this helps me out because whenever I see those asterisks, I always know where I'm going to and where I'm coming away from. And so there's always a musical idea in play, there's always musical motion happening, and I never get stagnant phrasing, right? And so I'll just put a tiny little asterisk in that, and I would put it like, do you have a pencil on you? It's okay, it's okay. So I would put the asterisk above that A. And then starting from the beginning of the piece, even as I'm holding the E natural there, I know that I'm growing into the A and never just like sitting and being like, oh yeah, shoot, that next note is important. And then we end up with the phrase da da dee, ya da da dee, instead of dee, ya da da dee, ya dum. Next phrase, where's the most important note?
So the F.
Great, show us. Great. Now we've created what we then need to determine, are those two phrases, do they create one sentence? Do we have fragment that creates a sentence? Can we zoom out for a second and start now looking at the peaks of our phrases and asking, okay, of those peaks, which one's the most important, right? So we're starting, what this does is it gives us context throughout the piece that we're playing, right? So if you had to look at the two peaks here, the A and the F, is one more important than the other, or are they equal?
I think the second one's more important. the cadence is stronger.
Great. Show us. Play 2 phrases. Beautiful, beautiful. I love that idea, right? I can totally buy into that music, and that's a great story that you're already starting to tell. So this idea helps us develop a singular storyline for the entire piece. It can be an etude, it can be a solo, it can be an excerpt, right? And what we do is we'll construct each phrase this way going through. You play it, you figure out, all right, where's the beginning of my phrase, end of my phrase? And it might be a sub-phrase. Like I think here we have 2 sub-phrases that create one idea, right? Like first half of the sentence, second half of the sentence. Put them together, especially with the way that you prioritized the peak of the second phrase over the first. You did a great job. Now we have a sentence. And then we'll do the next thing, because what do we have right away? With our third phrase, we're back to the opening statement in A minor, right? And so to carry on the pattern, what would be the peak of the phrase?
C.
Absolutely. And then we have, again, the second part of the sentence. And again, where's the peak of the phrase? And it can be different. That's okay.
Maybe the C sharp.
Okay. I feel it on the E, but that's what makes us as different musicians and presenting different products, is now we get to make decisions, and we're playing this, like if we both played this side by side, we'd be playing the same notes, but what makes your performance unique and my performance unique is what do you find cool as a musician? And that's really what we're here to do when we present a performance. We're sharing with our audience, well, this is what I think is pretty cool about these phrases. I actually think this note over here is cooler than that one, so I'm going to go to it, right? And this is what can then make you more unique as a musician, is making these choices ahead of time so that your performance is just fun. It's just a place for you to emote and to be in the moment because you have a great musical plan that you've thought about. Now, when we have this phrase and this phrase that make a sentence, then phrase 3 and 4 make a sentence, you see how we're starting to zoom out. We have 2 sentences there. And we can start zooming out, and as this melody develops into the con moto section, we start getting a paragraph, right? You start noticing, oh wow, there's like A material, B material, and then we're back at A material whenever the theme returns, right? This is all about developing that musical idea. Now, the third thing I mentioned was the breathing, okay? We need to structure our breathing in a way that makes it sound like in between the first 2 phrases, there's connection, right? So if you play this, there's a lot of space there, and we don't feel that connection. So this is where I've had to develop different types of breath marks so that I can better serve the music with my breathing. I think since we've already connected phrase 1 and 2, phrase 3 and 4, can we put more of a sip breath in between those so that we get the idea of a sentence? And then you can put more of a regular breath in between phrase 2 and 3 so that it separates it with a period, whereas the sip separates it with a comma. Can you try this, please? 4 phrases. So you'll have to work on your sip breathing in your daily routine. For me, that's number 2 of my daily routine, where I specifically incorporate sip breathing as part of my everyday practice so that I can get really good at maximizing the amount of air I take in for that short given space, right? We have to listen to the music to tell us how much space we have to breathe, and then we have to work on those spaces in our daily routine. Okay, so great job there. Lastly, before the faculty group chat is talking about barbecue. Okay. Lastly, before we have to move on, is the legato. Okay, so we want to equalize the sounds of our legato cross partial and in the partial. You're doing a fantastic job of cross partial slurs. Super smooth. What we're getting in the partial slurs is it's a little soupy. Da ra 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 da dum. So can we go right here? Just slur this whole thing. Were you articulating that or slurring it?
Wasn't being very intentional there. So.
Okay. For the sake of the exercise, can we go ahead and slur everything? So start here, and let's just do that one phrase for the sake of time. And what I want you to do is listen how clean you can get that, and make sure that you move your slide fast enough between fourth and fifth position to make sure it's the same kind of slur. Go ahead. Fantastic, fantastic. Whenever we're using legato, especially in the slide, it doesn't really matter. Across the slide, across the partial, within the partial, we have no time between the notes to be slow with anything. So your slide has to be lightning fast, right? Like our embouchures, especially with the larger leaps, have to move robotically, lightning fast, so that we have optimum smoothness of a legato, right? It's easy, I think, when we're playing legato to get this feeling of like, oh, relaxation and slow moving. And occasionally this can kind of work its way into our slide arm. And we have to make sure that it doesn't. We want relaxation, but we also want precision. And so I've kind of come up with this term in my practice that I like to call relaxed precision, where I am going to, recognize that I do want this relaxed approach, but I've got a job to do. And I need my slide arm working at its top capability. And so keeping that quick without causing any jerks in the sound will give you a smoother legato, and that was already 10 times better, man. Okay? I think we need to move on, but congratulations, you sound fantastic. Bravo. All right, while the next performer is coming up, does anybody have any questions?
So when you're performing, is there any way that you practice or work on making sure that you don't have tension or making sure you're very relaxed? Is there any mirror work or anything you do?
Absolutely, great question. So the question was, is there anything I do during my practice to make sure that I don't have any tension in my performance? Asking about mirror work. Mirror work is a big part of it. I do have a full-length mirror in my office at home that I practice in front of. I'd say that's an occasional tool that I use. One of the biggest tools that I think that helps me out with this is practice being distracted at home, right? So when we're performing on stage, first of all, performing for you all is probably one of the most nerve-wracking things that I could possibly do, because as trombone players, you know what a trombone mistake sounds like. If I'm playing for grandma and grandpa at a nursing home, they're gonna love it no matter what, right? Playing for trombone players at a trombone festival or like ITF or something, that's one of the hardest things to do and the most distracting, because it's like, we're up here, we see y'all out there. We try not to, but it's like, we know who's sitting out there. We know the minds and the ears that are in the audience, and it can be very distracting. And so I have to practice at home focusing amidst distractions. So I will, when I'm performing, especially as I'm gearing up towards a performance, I invite distractions into my practice room after I've learned the piece. So in the first stage, I'm learning the piece, I'm learning the notes, I'm making sure I can hear it, I'm practicing the technique, getting it to a level I'm very happy with, but then I need to practice performing it. So I'll turn a TV on, I'll turn the radio on, I'll oftentimes put headphones on, and I'll crank the music, even with, it'll be like rap music or country music or alternative, something that is just not what I'm working on. Can I still hear my music amidst that intense distraction? And this type of training really helps me to be able to stand up here and acknowledge, yes, there's a room full of people, but I'm gonna stay right here in my space, and I'm gonna lock into the music, and I'm gonna stay focused on it. And so that's what really helps me to stay in the moment, regardless of the atmosphere around me, whether it's an audition, whether it's a recital performance, whatever it may be. I'll take some more questions after the next performer, but let's give him a round of applause. What do you have for us, and what's your name?
I'm Mark, and I'll be playing the Coetzee Allegro Maestoso.
Fantastic. For the sake of time, how about we just do the first half? Maybe the first 2 pages, is that okay?
Yeah.
Great, whenever you're ready. And feel free to play some notes if you like. Fantastic. Bravo. Nice job. Very, very, very nice job. Also, really wonderful sound. They were like these. One of the things I'd like to talk to you about is sort of what we're focusing on in the first one is getting more of a complete musical idea. There were times where it's like you were being more musical than the others, and I really loved that. You had some great musical ideas, and it was really a joy to listen to those. I'd love more of those musical ideas at all times, right? Another thing I'd like to talk to you about is the articulation. Getting a little bit more clarity to it in this kind of a piece, bringing a little more point to the front. I think you're using a fine articulation, but it's an idea that I have. It's like, just as a painter has an array of paintbrushes for either points on the page or brushes on the page, we want to have an array of paintbrushes for our playing as well so that we can make those choices. And here, I think we need more of a pointed approach to the front of the note rather than a broad approach, right? And then finally, along the lines of the question over here, I think we can talk a little bit about relaxation. So let's start with that one, okay? We'll get a lot more done when we're relaxed than when we're tense. Were you nervous?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many of us get nervous when we have to play for others? Yeah, you're not alone.
Yeah.
All right. I heard this really great bit of advice from Professor Natalie Mannix, who just retired from University of North Texas. She's a good friend of mine. She was in the Navy band right before I got in, and our paths just seem to keep crossing. And she's just an absolute genius pedagogue within the musical trombone field. Her advice was, I talked to her, this might have even just been 5 years ago. It's like, how do you approach nerves when performing? And she was like, do you get really nervous? And she started asking me questions, do you get really nervous when you're performing? I'm like, yeah, I kind of do. And I had an ITF performance coming up after that. I was like, I'm not gonna lie. I'm pretty nervous about it right now. And she's like, okay, well, what are your fears? Immediately noticing the link between nerves and fear, right? Because excitement is what we feel when we think good things are coming. Nerves are what we feel when we think bad things are coming, right? And so she's like, all right, well, what are your fears associated? It's like, well, I don't want to mess up. I don't want to get there, and I don't want to, totally screw up the high note or completely just have my sound fall apart on stage. She's like, those are very you things, aren't they? I was like, well, yeah. And she's like, is that what music is about to you? And it was like kind of this whoa moment. It's like, no, that's not what it's supposed to be. What is music? What is performance supposed to be about?
I just think
Sharing the music. Great way of putting it. We're sharing an experience. We're using music as a medium to have a conversation with each other. It's a language, right? And in that sense, what I'm really trying to do whenever I get up here and perform is, these people have probably heard this piece before, but maybe it's something that you're coming up and you're like, I find these things cool about it, and I'd like to share that with you. Do you think you can still get the message across if you chip a note or miss a note? Yeah. Do you think you can still get the message across if you chip more than 1 or 2 notes? Maybe more than a couple? I think so. So when I think about it like that it's not about me, it's about the music and sharing what I think is cool about it, then suddenly the fear of making a mistake goes away, and you're left with the question of, what am I nervous about? If I don't care about chipping a note anymore, because that's not the point, perfection is not the goal. Right? It's just like having a conversation. Like, I'm not worried about if I stumble over my speech or I mispronounce a word. You'll still get the idea of what I'm saying. It's the same thing with performing. And when you truly buy into that, it takes nerves away, right? And you can really get into the piece. And you can really say, no, these are the things that are really cool. I think you're gonna love it whenever I get to this moment in the phrase, whenever I really sell it. And then I come away, it's so cool the way it's written and the way that I've decided to interpret it. It's more just about sharing musical ideas. So try adjusting, and if anyone out there is also dealing with performance anxiety, consider it was like an ego thing to be nervous about making mistakes. If I was nervous because I wanted it to be perfect, well, that's me. Nobody wants to enjoy a performance that's about the person. They want to enjoy that musical connection. And that's not about me, that's not about you, it's about this shared space and the shared event. Okay, so just consider that. The next thing, articulation. All right, let's talk briefly about that. So I realized for a really long time in my career, I was trying to perfect what I was thinking of as a trombone articulation. Right, I was trying to craft this idea of this is what I do with the tongue, this is what I do with the air, and I was putting all these details together of what my teachers have taught me over the years, and I got pretty good at it. It was pretty consistent, but it was never exactly what I wanted. It didn't always do what I wanted to in different dynamics and different registers, and so eventually I decided I'm tired of chasing this golden goose. So let me just. It doesn't feel natural. It feels manufactured. How can I make my approach to articulating as simple as possible, as simple as, the way you don't think about it whenever you take a step. If I need to go over there and grab my water bottle, I'm gonna go grab my water bottle, and I'm not thinking about each step that I'm taking. And I want my trombone playing to be this natural, this subconscious, so that my full brain can be focused on the music in the moment. So I thought, all right, what do I already have that I can use? And so I watched this masterclass about studying linguistics, right? About how we already have a lot of the information we need for our tongue in our subconscious, built in since we were kids and we were learning how to talk. You already have learned a fantastic trombone articulation that you can use. You don't need to reinvent the wheel, right? Everybody say this with me. Say the word table. Ready? Okay, you beat me to it. All right, let's say it again. Ready, set, table. That's a lot of great trombone articulations out there, right? You don't need to think about what you're doing with the tongue. You don't need to think about it's like, well, I want it to recoil. I want it to sit here. I want it to press this hard. I want it to hit this target point. Table. It's already there, right? So I created this exercise to help me then transfer that information to the instrument. Whoops. All right. Let's see if I can plug that back on there. All right. I'm going to take nope. Is that on? Okay. I'm going to take a little bit longer with this. Okay. So I created this exercise to help me then transfer that information to the instrument. So what I want to do is I want to be a passive observer in my speech. Table, 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 table. Great. All right. That's just kind of feeling. What does it feel like to create that clean, clear T at the front, followed by air, followed by sound? Table, table. All right. Now, can I plug that feeling in on the trombone? Table, 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 table. How can I then take that to like legato? Well, same thing. I don't want to try and manufacture where I'm putting the tongue. So everybody say dog with me. Dog. All right? Now say puddle. Puddle. Two very different tongue placements for the letter D in those words. Say dog again and listen how strong the letter D is in that word. Dog. Now say puddle. Puddle. Notice how the tongue just kind of flicks the top of the mouth, right? Puddle. Puddle. Two very different legatos that I can recreate just using information I already have. I don't need to get better at articulations. I just need to think about them differently. So can we try this a little bit? Can we try? Let's just take one. Can we start right here, please? And just start on a C with me and go table. Table. A little more air. There you go. Good. Move it to a D natural. Or, sorry, a D flat. Ready? And. All right. Here's how we're going to adjust it. Right? Let's pretend that you're telling someone to like get your butt to the table. Right? Get to the table. Right? Now say table like that. Table. Oh, that you're going table. Table. I don't think you're really that mad. I'm gonna stay over here and keep reading my book. Tell me to get to the table. Come on.
Get to the table.
Table. Come on. Hit the T.
Table.
All right. Give me that articulation. All right. I'm going. Give me that articulation on a D flat, please. Good. Now, we're still upset about table, but we're going to be like, it's almost like you're past upset, and you're just going to whisper like, get your butt to the table. Now. So we get intensity at the front of the word, but now we're bringing the dynamic back. D flat, please. Great. Now, using that same feeling, dun, 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 to table, go. Good. All right. Use this to work on your articulations and improve them. All right. I think that's all we've got time for. Bravo. Congratulations. Okay, while our next performer is coming up, does anybody have a question? Back there. Practicing different types of breathing, or the sip breathing? So, okay, yeah. So, actually, if anybody is curious what my daily routine is like, I've simplified it down to a 3-page daily routine. It's free on my website, brianhecht.com. Go to links, there's a free PDF download. For you bass trombones, there's also some bass trombone exercises out there. So if you want to see what I'm talking about as I'm discussing it, feel free to pull out your phones and go ahead and grab that PDF. So in my daily routine, I think it's very important to hit every fundamental every single day. Breathing is one of our fundamentals, and having different kinds of breaths caters to a designed musical idea whenever I'm playing. Sometimes I have plenty of room to have what I call a fill-up breath. So if you see FU circled on my music, it's not what you think. Maybe sometimes it is. But it's for filling up. It's usually like I've got a whole measure. And so I'm reminding myself, hey, don't just be sitting here. Take a breath. I've got 100% of my air filled up. I'm ready to go. I have a big breath, which I usually put in BB with a circle. That's like I have enough time to fill up, but I kind of need to be quick about it. I might have a beat. And then I'm coming in. Okay? I have a normal breath, which is like kind of what in the first performer we put between those statements, right? Where you can finish the phrase. You're not so concerned about getting every bit of air you possibly can. You're just taking a normal breath. And then the sip breath is like, I don't have any time anywhere. I'm just constantly playing notes for the next 45 measures. Where can I breathe? Well, the answer is nowhere. So you breathe everywhere, right? And so this is the sip breath that I'll focus on for just a second. In my daily routine, I incorporate each one of these breaths into the different exercises. So the first exercise is the fill up. I will, when I run out of air, I'm using this long tone air to glisten through the scales. I will take a moment. I'll suspend the time. Fill up and come back in. The next exercise is it's an articulation exercise where I do the same thing, the same B-flat scale, but I incorporate sit breathing because I want to make it to where you never even notice the breath. And what I'll do is whenever I do sit breathe, I don't want to remove the placement on my lips on the rim. Instead, I'm going to use the corners of my mouth to breathe. And if you want a great example of this, go watch Michael Phelps. Right? And if you don't know that name, go look it up, like 30-time gold medalist or something like that at the Olympics. It's crazy. When he pulls his head out of the water to breathe, he creates this it looks like a teardrop shape, right? Where it's like he's opening the furthest most corner of his mouth as much as possible while keeping the other side kind of closed, right? And so every 2 notes. And I'm doing it, trying to get it into a way where it's like it does not disturb the music or my execution one bit. So I have the space given to me by the music. I'm going to maximize it using these spaces right here in the corner, opening up, getting as dark of a sound of breath as possible. Notice that I'm not getting this, right? Kind of like Darth Vader, right? As low of a pitch as I possibly can helps me pull in the most amount of air with every little sip. And it's just something I have to practice every single day so that I can get really good at it and use it in that exercise, but also things like William Tell or this Verhelst piece we're playing tomorrow night called Circles, where I'm just playing, repeated articulated pedals for like an entire page. So I'm just sipping the entire time. That's how I'd work on it. All right, welcome. Let's give him a round of applause. What's your name and what do you have for us?
My name is Cameron, and I will be playing movement 2 of Elizabeth Rahm's Concerto for Bass Trombone.
Fantastic. Whenever you're ready. Awesome. Let's stop there. Bravo. All right. Great job. So, first thing I'd like to work with you on is getting your best sound across the horn, everywhere, right? Let's start with one. There's two things that I'm seeing here to break this down into two different categories. One, air and air support. Two, getting the same sound across the ranges of the instrument, okay? So the first thing, were you a little nervous? Yeah, all right. One of the first things that shuts down when we get nervous, it's our breathing apparatus, all right? So you probably notice, like, man, I'm not making the phrases I'm wanting to make. I'm not filling up the instrument or the hall the way I'm wanting to. So the first thing I have to remember anytime I am nervous is it's like, all right, it's fine. You're nervous? Got it. Understood. But then you start noticing what are the symptoms of my nerves, and nerves present themselves differently for all of us. This is where you're going to need to do some personal reflection, put yourself into nervous situations, and then observe how your body responds. This is going to be your list, right? And then do things in those situations when you get nervous to start flipping the symptoms around. Because when you can start showing your body that nerves don't have an effect on you, your body starts looking at nerves like, oh, all right, so what? I'm nervous. And your body relaxes, and you can be yourself on stage, okay? So for you, one of the things was you started taking smaller breaths, shallower breaths, more high-pitched breaths. So you've got indications in here where you don't want to breathe, but I don't see many indications in here with your notes about how you do want to breathe, more of a positive focus, all right? Now, well, I'll go into that another time. I think you should have more writing on here about different kinds of breathing, especially if like you know that you're going to have to play something in front of people. I write at the top of a lot of my stuff, relax, breathe, right? And it just kind of reminds you like, oh yeah, it's okay. I'm a little nervous, but I'm still going to have that kind of a breath approach, okay? I want to show you an exercise how we can remind ourselves, how we can wake up the air. And this is something I do backstage before I go on, kind of like removes the tension, wakes up my lungs before I go on for a performance. So what we're going to do is we're going to put both valves down. You're going to place your lips onto the rim. I'm going to demonstrate it right here. And you're going to just pump air through the horn. I call these blasts. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to take in 100% of my air supply in as relaxed a way as possible. I'm trying to crush it through the horn, right? There's already standing air inside your horn. My goal is to push all of that air out and then the air that's in my lungs to also go through the horn. Can we do this together? Make sure your lips are on the rim. We don't want them to activate. This is just an air exercise. We don't want to buzz the lips, okay? Both valves down, lips on the rim. Here you go, ready? Come on, breathe big. Go. More. Go, 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 go. Good. Stop for a second. Are you dizzy? Not really? You're not doing it enough. Okay? All right. This really needs to feel like you're activating your abs and you are just pushing that air, that you are pushing against the resistance of the horn and constantly winning. You're toppling the resistance of the horn. Okay? Let's do it again. Huge amounts of air in and out. Ready? Go. Good. I'm gonna have you do it one more time. You dizzy yet?
Get there.
Okay. Open the aperture. It looks to me like you're forming an aperture, and the whole point of putting our lips on the rim is there shouldn't be an aperture. I'm sending an airstream that's as big as the rim through my instrument. right? I'm not trying to form an aperture in the middle. One more time, 6 of them. 2, ready, go. Good. Relax for a second. Pedal B flat. 2, okay. B flat, bottom of staff. 2, ready. Fill it up more. 2, ready. Good. Up an octave. 2, ready. Utilize that airstream. More air. 2, ready. That's the sound we want. Right here, please. We'll do it with you. 2, ready. The sound you're wanting requires a ton of air, okay? If air is our currency, those notes are expensive, and you're just not laying down the currency to pay for them, all right? The good thing about this currency is it's free, right? You gotta pay more for those notes. They're expensive, they're rich, they have a much better sound, but you gotta put that air into the instrument, okay? Lastly, we're just gonna talk about this for 2 seconds. Your slide in the legatos needs to be much quicker. You're doing a bit of what I was talking about earlier, where it's like you're letting the feel of the music become the feel of your slide arm, and it's just always gonna be if my slide is slow, that's the result I get. If I put the same exact execution into the horn, but I just speed up the slide, cleans it up, okay? All right, bravo, congratulations. All right, while our next performer comes up, does anybody have any questions? Yeah. Okay, so the question was to elaborate about the air blasts that we were doing, putting your lips on the rim. So I'm literally putting my lips, so normally whenever I play, especially low range stuff, my lips are inside the rim, right? There's a little bit of pucker into the mouthpiece whenever I'm in the lower register. I'm not gonna do that. I don't want my lips inside the rim. I literally want my top lip on the top rim, my bottom lip on the bottom rim. And I don't know if y'all can see this, but there's no lip inside the mouthpiece because I don't want them to activate, right? And what this does is it wakes up all those muscles used for breathing, because I do need them to work a little bit more so that I can get higher quality air, higher amounts of air into the instrument. And more air shouldn't always mean a louder sound. And this exercise really helps show me that, so that I can get a bigger sound in the room. I can fill up my sound even more without bringing a louder dynamic, because I'm not putting faster air in. Ultimately, when I come back to the horn, I just relax and play normally. What results in it is I get a bigger airstream, okay? And so this is really helpful for that. The effects of it do fade. So you'll do this exercise, and I notice the results for maybe the next 30 seconds to a minute. Do it again, I'll notice the results again. The whole point of the exercise is to feel a new way of delivering the air into the instrument. So that just becomes your new normal way of delivering air into the instrument that gets a more resonant sound. All right, let's give the next performer a round of applause. Thanks for being here. All right, can you tell us your name and what you've got for us?
My name is Hugo Howard, and I have Concertantes Allegro, my Legato.
Fantastic. You want to go ahead and play the first page for us? All right, so first of all, really nice musical approach to this. Great job with the pedals, fantastic sound. All right, really, really nice work. Two things I'd like to focus you on right away is one, connecting our sound from note to note, and also getting your sound to not have to open into a note, but rather it's just always present, right? That your fullest sound, your most beautiful sound, your best sound, right? This is, I think, the biggest inconsistency of the performance was that, sometimes once you give us your best sound, that's the expectation, right? Fortunately and unfortunately. You showed us you've got a really awesome sound. Then anytime I didn't get it, I knew immediately it's like, all right, that's what I want to work on with you, all right? So let's start this opening statement. Do you mind, actually, is there a way to easily flip this? Thank you. All right. He had it with a black page with white notes, and I was just playing games on my eyes. It was cool, though. I liked it. All right. We're going to take the tongue completely out of this. I think that right now the tongue is sabotaging your sound. All right? So my favorite thing to do is to get as close to the final product as I can without using the tongue. And actually, in order, just because, we're not just working together, but I want to tell this to everybody as well. I was working with this guy whenever I was in the Atlanta Symphony, who he was head of security at the CDC. And the guy would come in and he would work, he loved to work on contra, but I was talking to him about articulations, and I was like, man, you give too many jobs to your tongue. You ask your tongue to accomplish too much of your playing, and you don't ask enough of your air, enough of your lips, enough of anything else. And it's like, tell the tongue to go sit down and stop trying to do other people's job. And he explained, he's like, it's very similar to the way we, manage the employees at work. They have this rule, stay in your lane, right? And he said, if I have one employee that's constantly messing up, employee A is constantly messing up, but employee B is so good at their job that they're also taking on the responsibilities of employee A, then he as a supervisor will never know where the problem really exists because the job is still getting done, but something's not quite firing on all cylinders. So he tells everybody, just do your job. If somebody's messing up, great. I'm not going to fire them. I'm going to work with them, right? And so to take that analogy back to trombone, if we're the CEO, right, and our employees are the air, the lips, the tongue, the slide, the valves, right? You can't really fire any of them, and but your tongue is your worst employee, right? That person's just constantly messing stuff up. And you can't really fire him because he's the CEO's son, so you just kind of have to keep him around and be like, you know what? Go read a book. Go away. The four of us over here are going to get the job done. We'll call you in at the end to just, do what's left. That's how I approach using the tongue, right? I want to get as close to the final product as I can before I bring the tongue and be like, all right, we do need you to do like this one little thing here. Don't screw it up, right? So let's do that. Let's get as close as we can. Let's take like a phrase or two, and let's get as close as we can to the final product without using the tongue. So that means it's going to be glissando, okay? Everything natural slur, glissando. Be a little under tempo. Two, and much right there. Can you please play this right there? Do. Again, can you get a little bit more precision to the 16ths? There you go. So you don't need the tongue to clean those up. You need the slide to clean those up, right? Let's do this one more time. Let's adhere to the dynamics we have on the page. Two, and from the top. Practice in this manner, making sure that you're already, without the tongue, getting great transitions of your sound. Notice already, your sound isn't taking quite a dip into each note. you're doing a much better job of getting resonance transfer. All right, so great legato I can break down into a couple of different things. One, it's all about the connection. Am I actually removing the space between the notes? Right? That's the basic definition of a legato. Am I connecting the notes with a soft articulation? Right? 2, am I getting good dynamic transfer? Right? And 3, am I getting good resonance transfer? So the way I break those down into what you're going to hear when it's a mistake, so that you know which one to fix, is if I am not connecting the sound, well then obviously there's space. There's little separation happening. It's not connected. That's usually not the problem. Usually people know how to connect notes for legato. The next one is dynamic transfer. If I'm getting... Notice how the note is shaping down and the beginning of the next note is louder. There's too much of a dynamic difference between the end of one note and the beginning of the next. That's going to end up in a bumpy legato. What instead I want is I want the dynamic, the decibel, to pass off between the end of one note and the beginning of the next. That's dynamic transfer. Resonance transfer is where your tongue was just getting in the way and it was taking your sound in the room and bringing it down each time, right? This can be easily fixed by taking the tongue out of it, glissandoing through, and just getting your sound all the time. This is good resonance transfer. Then, when I add the tongue back in, I want to make sure it's not disturbing my final product. I've gotten it all the way to the 1-yard line. I'm almost in the end zone. I'm almost there. If adding the tongue causes me a 5-yard penalty, you're fired, right? We want to put in Saquon Barkley, right? That's our tongue. We want to punch it in the end zone. So when we add the tongue into the mix, we need it to improve our product. And if it doesn't, that's how we know we're doing it wrong. So we're going to take the first phrase, we're going to glissando, then we're going to stop, we're going to go back, and we're going to add the tongue in just the right amount using that puddle articulation. Okay? Glissando. 2, 3. Back to the top. Puddle. That's how I would approach getting better resonance transfer throughout this whole movement whenever you're doing legato. Okay? Bravo. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's done at 2. Do I have time to take a question or anything? Yeah, what time do I need to be done by? Okay, can I take 15 minutes to answer questions if it takes that much time? Oh, okay. Does anybody have any questions? I might not need that time. Yeah. Oh, I was just playing around. My colleague Nathan, we were in the Atlanta Symphony together for 8 years. He's still one of my best buddies and partners in crime with Slide School. We talk about equipment all the time. And so I was telling him about what works in the Dallas Symphony whenever I play tenor. Most of my job there is tenor trombone. And in order to get a second sound, I want it to be broader than the first trombone so that I'm getting if the first trombone sound is this big, second is this big, third is this big, and then tuba. So it's this nice, even broadening of the sound all the way down through the low brass. And in order to do that, I had to open up the throat to a crazy degree. Well, he's been playing around with this guy in the area named Jason Robbins with 3D printing mouthpieces. And so I told him what I like and what I've been developing with Griego. He was like, I've got something I want you to try. And so he brought it to STS, and I was just like, all right, I'll play a concert on it and see how it goes. And so it's like a 3D printed Delrin plastic mouthpiece that I had last night. Yeah. What's the bass mouthpiece? This one here. So this is, thank you for asking. This is my line with Griego. It's the Hecht line of bass trombone mouthpieces, and we have a doubler mouthpiece as well. That's my tenor mouthpiece. This one is the Hecht Zero Audition. So it's a 0G rim with a 312 throat and a tapered backboard. This is what I use for solo stuff. Anytime I'm teaching or playing recitals, this is my mouthpiece. I also have a recital one and an orchestral one, and the reason why we're revamping it is because I don't really use the recital one anymore. I was using it with the Shires because I wanted the Shires that I was on before was built for depth and darkness, and that recital mouthpiece helped bring brilliance to the sound. This horn is already built to have lots of colors, and so I'm using the Audition because it helps bring core, projection, and depth to the sound. So those will be here this week, I think at the Getson booth, and this one's the Audition. Yeah, question in the back.
How do you approach playing at the volume like you were playing last night without overblowing the horn?
What are you talking about? Was I loud? Sorry. So, you know, that style of playing, I think it's always been something that I like played around with. Like, so to tell you a little about myself, I grew up in Dallas, Texas. I, went through the whole marching band machine that is Texas schools, right? Football is huge in Texas, and therefore marching bands are huge in Texas. It's a different lifestyle, it's a different culture than I've seen in most other states, not all, but most other states, and that we spend most of the summer outdoor practicing playing loud, right? So that was from a very young age, something that they teach in the Texas school systems was, hey, we need you to project to the press box, right? And we need you to do it with a good sound because we're trying to win a competition, right? So this was education I received from a very early age, was how to make a big sound, how to get it to stay intact, how to get expression while still playing loudly. And I kind of just, even whenever I went to undergrad and grad school, I just had a fascination with it of, like I wanted to make these moments in either wind ensemble or orchestra. The conductors were certainly asking for it. I remember this one time in grad school, we were playing a Mazlanka piece, and Mallory Thompson looked back, she's like, Brian, I want it to sound like shredded metal. Like, okay, I better go practice that. So I remember it was on like a low C, and I couldn't do it. And so I remember I just walked out by the water, by Lake Michigan, and I just played as loud as I could for days, over and over and over and over again until I could control it. So I could get the volume, the color, the expression she was looking for, but also to not have like wavering in my sound, but to also still have core, and for it to not just be like all edge. Right, so I spent a lot of years focusing on, all right, how can I use my air, control the walls of the aperture to keep my sound intact in even the loudest dynamics, and it's taken a long time, but that was kind of the approach, and just constantly having a curiosity and annoying the hell out of my colleagues in the practice rooms next to me. Yeah, 1 and then 2. Oh, yeah. Thanks for asking. All right. Sometimes I forget to talk about that. So, Slide School, this started in the pandemic. We're about to celebrate our 5th birthday. Whenever the pandemic happened, we were all studying online. And so Nathan and I were bored. We needed an outlet. We were just stuck at home practicing, and we have a passion for teaching. We have a passion for figuring out the trombone, and he and I are both what I would call expert practicers, and because I'm an expert at practicing, I then am good at the trombone, right? I don't find it's the other way around. I'm very good at this is what needs to happen in the practice room so that results happen. So we had the idea of creating masterclasses. It started as sort of like a workout group during the pandemic where people would come and we would do these live classes where everyone would just do daily routines with us, and then it sort of evolved where we started covering topics, covering solos, covering excerpts, and we have everything recorded via Zoom. Then we started increasing the fidelity of it. We started buying really nice microphones. We each have microphones that are well over $1,200 set up in the room to capture our playing at the highest level. We have nice cameras. Nate's even got like lighting in the room to really improve, and we just kind of kept putting into this idea of creating educational content that can be found online, and it turned into this massive library of information to where Nathan and I have both covered every excerpt that you're going to find on any tenor or bass trombone list on our website, and also we developed an app. So for Android and for iPhone, there's a Slide School app. You can check it out, and it gives you access to over 450 masterclasses and a community for Slide School, where we have about 100 members right now worldwide, so that whenever you show up to events, you have people that are like-minded that you can get together with. You have someone that, if you go take an audition, you can hop into the Slide School community and say, hey, I don't want to have to pay for a hotel all by myself. Who wants to split one? And it's an instant studio of friends and people that are all into learning about trombone. But then also, I think the biggest part of Slide School that I'm most proud of is that Nathan and I we fully understand that it's like you can't have a comprehensive education with only 2 minds giving information. So we find the brightest minds in the trombone community, and we bring them into Slide School. And we've invited over 100 guests right now in to give classes, and we're actually starting it to have guest lectures. So the guest artists are when we have, like professional players and teachers come in, and we interview them for the first half. The second half, our members will submit recordings or play live for instant feedback. What we're doing now, in addition to that, is bringing in guest lecturers. Our most recent one was Megumi Kanda. She recorded an entire class on her approach to Miraculous Mandarin, Brahms 1, and William Tell using her book, The 100. So she submitted an hour-long class where you can pull up the app, tune into the class, and get a first-hand approach on how does Megumi, principal in Milwaukee, approach these excerpts and approach performing them. And we have a ton of different people coming in. Also, we have this week someone coming in on Alexander technique, and we have Doug Yo coming in to talk about fundamentals. So each month we bring in a ton of new people and have a ton of classes. We're just continually building it up, and it's only $49 a month. We also have a free trial, so free 1-week trial. Please check it out. If you don't like it, cancel it. Costs you $0. Yeah, question right here. Oh, we need to head out. Oh, okay. All right. Well, find me after. All right. Thank you all so much for being here. Enjoy your week.